In this next installment of Mental Toughness for Athletes, I'm chatting about guilt, shame, and cheat days. I really struggle with feelings of shame. That's why I'm particularly vulnerable to messaging that relies on guilt. I noticed that some of the messaging in the 75 Hard I recently completed triggered these feelings of shame in me. Winning the war on myself, taking progress pics of my semi-naked body, being made to feel guilty for wanting to adjust the program to my needs. All of these were icky. The idea of cheat days, or that I might be cheating myself, instantly turns my stomach into a block of ice, which then drops violently into my shoes. It's the feeling I associate with being not enough, and it literally makes me shiver in my boots. I'm not quite sure how to illustrate this to you, so maybe let's use body image as an example. Like almost everyone socialized in the 90s, I struggle with wanting to be smaller. I want to be shorter, skinnier, just more petite, which doesn't come naturally to me, not to my body or my lifestyle, or a desire to actually be happy. I know that this is a socialized idea, and I know it isn't useful and doesn't fit my values, so it should be easy to discard, right? And no, because stupid sport and exercise has provided a backdoor for these same ideas to enter my life. Now I want to be smaller because it will help with performance. And what amplifies the shame is that I expect to be this perfect thing, but I know I'm not allowed to look as though I'm working for it. Being as light as you can possibly be without impeding your ability to gain muscle is just the skinniness complex in a different guise. But it's one that's harder to dismiss because I'm unsure about whether it's useful and whether it does fit with my values. My inability to achieve this lightness effortlessly, and maybe even the very fact that I'm not sure if I want the lightness, fills me with shame. I feel guilty all the time about the body that I'm living in. I've started believing that there's something wrong with me, that I'm bad, flawed, not good enough. And even worse is that these beliefs influence how I act. I was forging a river the other day, as one does on a backyard adventure, and the first thing I looked for in the video was how my ass looked. Should I be so ashamed of this body that I should keep it encased in material even amid a river crossing? Or is my cellulite at an acceptable level for public consumption? And that's wild, right? To be so aware of your body that it stops you from adventuring. What if I decided that I didn't like how my bum looked while forging the river? Would that stop me from forging the next river I come to? I'm scared that my feelings of shame will stop me from trying things. More specifically, I'm afraid that they'll get in the way of me trying again. In the type of life that I want to be living, I expect there to be failures and mistakes and criticism. As Brené Brown says, shame hangs out in the parking lot of the arena, waiting for us to come out defeated. That's when we feel most determined to never ever take risks again. Shame laughs and says, "I told you this was a mistake. I knew you weren't good enough." If I internalize these feelings of shame, if I start believing that I'm too weak, too heavy, too scared, too stupid, or any other combination of not enough, then I'm less likely to try again. We've been told that the golden rule, personal development 101 if you want, is taking responsibility for your life, for your thoughts, feelings, reactions, actions, triggers, all of it. And let me tell you, at that I have excelled. I can tell you my part in every bad thing that has ever happened to me. And often I don't just own a part of the bad thing, I own the whole event. I think the strategy of taking responsibility might be appropriate when large parts of the event are within your power to change. Or in my situation, a more measured approach might be owning the small part that is within my control. But I think the part I missed is allowing myself to feel hurt, angry, frustrated, or even deeply wronged by the things that aren't in my control. I need to blame the world, the other person, the conditions. I can take responsibility for how I deal with the weight narrative, but I'm also allowed to be hurt and angry that the world makes me feel less than based on a number on the scale. I have an unpopular opinion about mental toughness for athletes. I've noticed this difference between internalizing and externalizing failure in rock climbing. I think that not taking responsibility for your failure makes you more resilient. Just hear me out, okay? I'll start by setting the scene. You get to a crag and the rock conditions are bad. You can't see the chalk. Every hold has gone black and soapy and schlorky. Every move is harder than it usually is. You slip off things you can usually hold, and linking tricky moves feels basically impossible. You get on and you try hard, but it's clear that you're not going to get anywhere near the top of the route today. Let's do a little quiz. Who is more likely to try this difficult climb again? The climber who thinks they can't send because conditions are bad? Or the climber who believes that they can't climb well in bad conditions? The climber who thinks they can't send because conditions are bad today? Or the climber who thinks they are not strong enough to send this climb? The climber who thinks something bad is happening to them? Or the climber who believes that they are bad? Climber A is always blaming the world. And my controversial take is that that can lead to more resilience. Climber B, on the other hand, believes that they can't climb well in bad conditions, that they're not strong enough to send the climb, that there's something wrong with them. Why would you ever get on the climb again if you're clearly not good enough to get to the top? Climber A, on the other hand, will hop onto the climb again. Maybe conditions are better today than they were yesterday. Maybe I'll get to the top. And if I don't, it's because the conditions are bad. And that's fine. Sometimes that happens. Failure is nearly always influenced by factors beyond your control. When you take too much responsibility for the failure, every slip or missed goal feels shameful. If instead you can recognize that actually this isn't about me, then you can externalize that failure. And when you do this, you're more likely to try again, to push forward, because you see failure as something that happened, and sometimes something that happened to you, not something that originates within you and hence defines you.